This is the City Sites Podcast with Larry Kutzler.
Many people have habits they want to break, and probably some habits other people want us to change. To make those adjustments, habits expert James Clear says we should think small. His popular blog gets 2 million visits a month. He's also a frequent speaker at Fortune 500 companies, and his work is used by teams in the NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA. Clear's book is called Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. James Clear, good morning.
Good morning.
Love this book.
Oh, thank you.
So to help everyone, what are Atomic Habits?
Sure. So Atomic Habits was written to be the most comprehensive guide on how to improve your habits. And I chose the phrase for 3 reasons. So the first meaning of the word atomic is tiny or small. And that's a central part of my philosophy, that habits should be small and easy to do. The second meaning is that atoms are the fundamental unit in a larger system. So atoms build into molecules, molecules build into compounds, and so on. And in a sense, habits are kind of like the atoms of our lives. You know, like they're these fundamental units, these little patterns that we repeat, and over time they become more or less our daily routines. The third reason, though, is that atomic can also mean the source of immense energy or power. And I think if you add all 3 of those together, you understand the narrative arc of the book, which is that if you make changes that are small and easy to do and layer them on top of each other like units in a fundamental system, a larger system, you can get powerful results.
Okay, give a specific example of how you do that. Make a small change and pack it with something you do regularly without thinking about it.
You say a 1% change can make a difference.
Yeah, that's right. 1%. So this idea that habits are, I like to say habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So this 1% change that you're talking about, it's kind of like, imagine you're in a plane and you're leaving Los Angeles and you're going to go to New York. I actually calculated this. If you shift the nose of the airplane just 3.5 degrees, it's like 7 or 8 feet on the runway. You barely even notice it, but you end up in Washington, D.C. instead of New York.
Right.
And habits are kind of a similar thing. You know, they're these small routines, little 1% changes, but as over time, they compound and you can end up at a very different place based on that.
This podcast is the design of City Sites Urban Media, and our goal is to bring into focus the difference between culture and God's ideas found in His Word. To learn more, go to citysitesurbanmedia.com.
Everyone has one life to live, good, bad, or indifferent. Most people live life either in worry or fear or in absentia. So I decided to ask some successful people what they do to enhance their lives. What practices do they practice that focus life on the important things that are free from fear and worry and pulls us out of living only for ourselves? Dr. Nathan Unruh is a successful chiropractor, entrepreneur, business owner, speaker, and family man. And so I thought he would be a good candidate for my questions on habits that matter. Nathan, you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, look at you. Chiropractor, entrepreneur, business owner, speaker, family man. Holy cow, you're a busy guy.
You're right.
So, I mean, you've got to have good habits to make all of those things work, right? So,
Absolutely.
I just came back from Las Vegas, and I love Las Vegas. I know you go there quite often as well, and I love to watch the people when I'm there. And I notice a lot of the attitudes, and I notice behavior, appearance. It just seems to me that I can say, hey, I kind of know by what they look like that they probably have some bad habits. What do you say?
Oh, I think without a doubt. Isn't that fun, though, watching people?
Oh, I love it.
Isn't it fun being able just to observe human behavior and how much human behavior really tells us? And I loved your intro. As you talk about successful people, one of the things that I've found about people that have accomplished anything in their life, they really have done a nice job, first and foremost, understanding themselves. Mm-hmm. And once they understand themselves, I think that's where the juice comes from. How do they, now you know where you're at and how you want to improve.
Well, every time I'm watching people in Las Vegas, I get elbowed from my wife. Stop it. Stop it. You're judging people. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just observing people, and I see some of the things that they are doing. I'm thinking through, well, they have some bad habits. So what habits have you made in your life that changed your life? Because you weren't always the successful guy you are today. Some of that is due to the habits you put into practice. What are they?
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, I get the same elbows from my wife because I do the same thing. And so first thing I've done is a habit is versus being in a state of judgment, be in a state of curiosity.
Ah, I see.
So can I be more curious of why people have made the decisions they've made to put them in the position they are, whether good, bad, or indifferent? So one of the habits is that right there, which one of my mentors taught me that. He says, there was a period in time where I would almost get angry or upset because people weren't seeing the world the same way that I was seeing it through my own eyes. Mm-hmm. So a habit of, hey, stop the judgment and start being more curious. Now, that sounds really idealistic because the reality is we all judge whether we think so or not. You think about you in Las Vegas, when you look at somebody, you form an opinion of that person subconsciously or consciously within about 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
7 seconds. And there's 11 different metrics by which we will judge somebody. And we'll judge them all the way down to we can all of a sudden have an opinion of what their religious background is, their sexual preference, their money, the amount of money they make just by observing.
Yeah.
And so I think, when you look at habits, I think one of the best habits that I've learned, and I've learned this later in life, but is truly define success.
Good
so
point.
when you say successful people, you've said that word probably 3 times already, right?
Yeah.
Successful people.
Well, I figure that somehow they've got to be successful because they had certain disciplines or habits that sort of drove them, not to watch TV all day and eat chocolate, but they had disciplines that pushed them into a category of making them successful.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Successful, a category of successful.
Okay.
So one of the things that I have had to learn is we observe people, if you go look at the Fortune 500 or the richest people in the world, and you start looking at some of these people's personal lives, it's not always that glamorous. 3, 4, 5 different marriages. You can look at those things that we would say, well, are they really successful? So it started making me ask, well, what does this word success really mean? And what I have found is that success is usually defined by somebody else, not ourselves.
Well, that's true. I can look at you and say you're successful. How would you see yourself?
Because you have defined that in a way that says there's certain things that I have done that you personally think is success.
Okay.
So here's the best definition of success that I've heard. I have an audience of one.
All right.
Okay. And if I have an audience of one, that one being my savior, and every single day at the end of the day, how did I do? Does that make me successful? I think it does. And I think that really my pursuit is not success as much as it's excellence. So the talents that have been given to me, how do I give the most out of those talents to give back for an audience of one? So for so many of us, there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. And in the book, The Gap and the Gain, he talks about the gap of this ideal state that we're always searching for. We're always like, I'm going to be happy the when I syndrome, when I walk, when I can run, when I graduate from middle school, when I graduate from high school, when I graduate from college, when I get married, when I get the white picket fence, when I buy the Ferrari, when I get to retire. I'm always going to be happy versus getting in a state, I'm happy today. So I think the very first habit that is the most important to me, and I have it sitting here in front of me right now. There's not a day that I don't start my day without in a state of gratitude. What are the things I'm happy for today? Because I'm a firm believer the good Lord can't bless us with more unless we're already happy with what we already have.
Well, I love that. But you know as well as I do, Dr. Nathan, that there are a lot of people who have that audience of one mentality, right? Yet they are miserable. They are less than excellent in anything that they do. So there's got to be some kind of rules of engagement when you take that, what you're saying, that attitude of gratitude, and you do something with it to make their lives more, well, I guess, acceptable to Him, and that where they're happier or they become happy. Not necessarily what they have, but it's what they do with what they have. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I agree. And, sometimes the audience of one, still me included, become lazy, become victim in mindseted, become woe is me. So I think then when you look at then the habits of those people that are creating excellence in their life, and I would say less happiness and more joy, because happiness is really external, joy is internal.
Correct.
And so when we look at then where do you start? I got to understand why I'm getting my butt out of bed every day. So I use a simple acronym: purpose, passion, and discipline. What's my purpose? My purpose is to enhance millions of lives. My passion is not what makes me feel good. It's what I'm willing to suffer for. No different than the passion of the Christ. He didn't really want to hang on that cross and get nails shoved through his feet and his hands, but he loved us so much that he did that. It was a suffering for something you love so much. So if my vision is tight or my purpose is tight, I'm willing to suffer for it. Now what am I willing to do to discipline my thoughts and my actions and create better habits? Because there's two different pains in life: the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. They both hurt, but they both have different consequences. So I would look at that person to say, okay, if you want to develop a different life for yourself, you have to understand how to manage time. And I would even go deeper to say, how do you leverage time? If you ever want something done, give it to the busiest person, because they figure out how to do it, because they understand the value of time. So if we all have 168 hours a week, 1,440 minutes a week, I think it's 600 seconds a week. If we understand that's all we have, you have the same starting line that I have. How am I going to leverage time to create excellence in my life? So one of the exercises that I've learned to do is a time optimization exercise. I do it once a quarter. I used to do it even more often, once a month. I write down everything that I'm doing. Because you know what the biggest objection to excellence is? I just don't have time.
Excuse, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you figured out how to watch 3 different series on Netflix. You figure out how you look at your screen time on your phone, and you look at the amount of time you spent looking at social media. And when I start looking at my time optimization, I have to be willing to get rid of those things that are going to get in my way of living an extraordinary life. Now, anybody can live an extraordinary life, but the word extra and extraordinary has got to come from somewhere. And so a routine, and I believe making a routine your reward is key to excellence.
Okay, explain that a little bit more. What do you do in your routine that makes your life live in excellence?
So I want to create flow. And flow was a term that I read a book by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, spell that. Yeah. He's a Czechoslovakian gentleman that really wrote, how do you get into this arousal state where you're engaged and you're engaged on a regular basis and you create great things? Well, we created a process I call flow. What is my focus? What are my loves? What are my opportunities? And what are my wins? And that's the 4 things I focus on every day. And then I will write that down in my calendar every single day. So I start every single morning. This is a habit of write my goals in the morning, and I write my goals at night.
So your goals for that day?
My overall goals. Okay. Where are my goals right now? Do those change? Yes, I reevaluate every year. 7 billion people on Earth. What percentage of people of 7 billion set goals in January?
Many. I don't know.
20%.
Really? Wow.
Of the 20%, only 8% of the 20% ever follow through with them throughout the year, whether they accomplish them or not. They lose focus. They go in a drawer. They never look at them. So a habit and a routine then of me writing them twice a day allows me to write down my goals over 700 times in a year. Do you think I have a better chance of accomplishing those goals by writing them down and keeping them front and center? Absolutely. I've been doing this for years. I got in the back of my here, I got stacks of all my goals. I go back and look at them. And by making that commitment of writing them down, because goals without deadlines are merely fantasies.
So do you accomplish all those that you write down?
No.
Okay.
If I accomplish all of them, they're not big enough.
I figured you'd say that too. Okay, so do you ever get to the end of a year and you go, wow, I didn't even accomplish 20% of these goals? I mean, do you ever find disappointment in that?
I would be lying to you if I said, no, I've never found disappointment. Yeah, I get disappointed, but usually I take 100% accountability. And when I take 100% accountability and extreme ownership of that, that's on me. But I also, though, again, will not get in a victim mindset. I will still stay in what the gain that I was talking about. What wins did I have?
Okay. You keep it positive that way.
And that's another habit. I write down my wins every single day. In wins in all areas of my life. So again, sometimes we forget that success is still only defined by, materialistic things or whatever the world describes as success. But how about in the 7 areas of my life? Physical, mental, social, spiritual, family, career, financial. I can get wins in every one of those areas of my life. For instance, if I work out today, that's a win physically. Mm-hmm. If I eat clean today, that's a win physically. I'm going through the Gospels right now. I read the Gospels this morning. That keeps me connected to the source and to the vine, right? So I think that those habits of what you're looking at, the 7 areas of your life, what am I doing to make sure that I'm striving for excellence in all 7 areas? Because of the mistake I made early on in my life is I got pretty good at making money and building businesses, but I didn't get real good at how I took care of my family emotionally and spiritually.
That is a revelation. I mean, that's a huge revelation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it changed your life how did you come to that revelation?
Well, I think like so many times you just get to a point in relationships, whether it be with my wife or my kids, where I just wasn't hitting the mark, and you can tell and you can feel that and you got that anxiety. And so that's why I wrote the book Digit. Digit's the one number to transform your life. So another habit that I have is every single 90 days, I rate myself out of a scale of 10 where I'm at in that area of my life. And here's the thing. I don't believe in balance. People go, we're going to live a balanced life. Good luck. Because things are ebb and flowing all the time. We never know what curveball life is going to throw at us. So there's times in my life where my financial needs some help. There's times in my life where I've let my physical kind of get a little weak. There's times in my life where I let my spiritual walk go a little south. And so like right now, I'm looking at my score right now. I'm a 62 out of 70 for this last quarter. My lowest one right now is spiritual. I scored it an 8. So therefore, this 90 days, I'm putting a little extra effort on that. Now, another quarter, it might be my family. I'm going to go put a little extra effort then if that's the lowest one, because it's never balanced. Life is a teeter-totter, right? All of a sudden we get the diagnosis that there's a disease that one of our family members have. Well, guess what? My focus goes there. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that habit of knowing what my score is, the habit is I choose one word every year. It's another habit that I have.
Well, I like that. You taught me that. And my word this year is clarity. And so I'm filtering everything through clarity. And I'm asking questions all the time to get clarity. And people around me are just getting mad. What's wrong with you? Why are you so myopic? Why do you got to know that? I go, well, it's part of what I need to know in order to operate, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think just listening to you, I think you've got all this down, but our audience is going, this guy is myopic. I mean, how does anybody able to function with so many systems and so many things that you put into place to make those habits to get to the point of excellence? I would say that that's what's necessary, but I'm not sure people in general would agree with you.
And you know what? I hope that whatever you want out of your life, you have your own systems.
Okay.
If you want something different, you're going to have to change, because nothing gets better till you get better. I love what Larry Wingert says, and it's called Work for a Reason. You know why your life sucks? It's because you suck.
Perfect.
If you want to solve that, stop sucking.
Yeah.
I don't know if that language is appropriate here.
It's appropriate. Yeah.
But it's the truth. If I want my weight to be a certain place, I can't get mad at the scale when I get on it and it tells me the number I don't like to see. I've got to go make changes. If I don't like people go, I want balance. I go, how's the balance in your bank account? Well, it's bad. Well, you don't have balance there then, do you? I think when we look at that, again, what I will always tell our clients, and I'll tell people that ask me these questions, says, you don't have to change a thing if you're happy with how everything is.
Good point.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Because your life is your own fault.
Well, that's where we get into problems, right? People live in excuses. No, it's not my own fault. It's all because my past or my parents or my wife or my job or whatever it is. The excuses just go on. And that is the kind of person that, probably will never change.
Well, and you know what, though? I want to speak to that for a minute, because just because it runs in your family doesn't mean you have to run with it. Mm-hmm. I think all of our parents do the best that they can with what they were given from mentoring, what they saw growing up. Mm-hmm. We have a responsibility to take what's good and get better.
Correct.
And so therefore there's things that happened in my life that I'm not proud of or happy with, but I have to go, okay, why did that happen? Why is that behavior there? And what can I do to change that? It's not their fault. Every day I get up, I get to make a new decision to be better. And that is the pursuit of excellence. And so one of the things, too, that I think that's been a good habit for me is that I heard a quote one time, and it really resonated with me, is because some people will tell me, you work too much. And I'm like, well, okay. But if work is love visible, am I really working too much?
I love the spin. It's great.
So if you hate your job, maybe you need a new job. Mm-hmm. So I think that, it's all perspective on how we want, and we got to elevate that perspective.
Let me ask you this in the final question. If you had one word to describe yourself, what would that word be, and why would you choose it?
Grit.
Grit. With all the excellent things and ideas and principles and values you put down, you want to be known as grit?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, you've heard me tell this story many a times, and the analogy of the buffalo resonates with me, being from South Dakota. And the buffalo, when a storm comes in on the prairies, the buffalo do something that cattle don't. Cattle will see the storm, and they'll turn away from the storm and run away from it. The buffalo will look at the storm, and knowing that they turn into it, the sooner they turn into it, the sooner they get through it. But it's going to take a little grit to do that. And describe grit how you want. Grit, persistence are the things that I hold on to, and knowing that no matter what you throw at me, that I want to live with grit and persistence, because I know the curveballs are coming.
Buffalo theology. Perfect. So you said earlier in conclusion that you are living your life in excellence in accordance to the audience of one. What would you tell my audience today about spiritual life? What would you say that, above all things, you would say is important when it comes to your spiritual life?
I think that it's got to be, for me, the foundation of everything. When I'm away from it, it's when I have the most problems. It's when I let my ego get in the way, which ego to me means edging God out. You probably have heard that before. Mm-hmm. So I love what Zig Ziglar said at one point in time. He said, you know what? I read the Bible and the newspaper every single morning, that I know what both sides are doing. And for me, it's being in the Word. It's being around people that know the Word better than I do. It's about being a part of a church family and being around other believers, and using my faith as my foundation for everything that I do, and the lens by where I look at. And I know this, every hard time in my life I've ever gone through is usually because I didn't stay connected to the vine. And, my one word this year is heart.
Really?
And the reason I chose heart is because heart is the one word in the Bible that's there more than any other word. 826 times.
All I think about when I think of heart, well, I think of many things, but one thing is guard your heart, right? That's an important piece of finding that excellence. Guard your heart against the things that are not profitable.
100% agree. And that's one of the reasons I chose it. Guardrails. Surrendering of my heart. Cleansing of my heart. Am I coming more from a level of empathy? Which, you know what? You would have measured my empathy. Still, if you measure it, it's not real high. I got to constantly work on it. But I want to be more empathetic. And being more empathetic means I got to be more curious versus judgmental, kind of how we started this conversation.
Yes.
And so I've learned over the years that, in this year especially, as I'm really trying to live out this word heart, that I've learned that I've just really operated out of my head. If you go look in the Bible, the mind is not talked about that much. Mm-hmm. The brain isn't talked about that much. Mm-hmm. But the most important 18 inches in my body is from my head to my heart. And how do I connect those two? And so you can get a lot of success by trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and you can go accomplish a lot of things. But I think that at the end of the day, you end up pretty empty. So I think that's where the faith component comes in. Surrender. Make sure you keep connected to the vine. Mm-hmm. And, our family model is work hard, love Jesus. Everything else will take care of itself.
Perfect, perfect. And I imagine your family is saying, yay, Dad's got a heart.
No, they're still not convinced. I got called the Tin Man the other day.
By a family member? You gotta be kidding.
Oh, yeah, that's a...
The Tin Man.
I've taught my kids well. I've taught them all to be a bunch of smart alecks.
It sounds like it.
Perfect? Bang on my chest if you think I'm perfect. Go ahead, bang on it. Beautiful. What a nickel. It's empty. The tinsmith forgot to give me a heart. No heart? No heart.
Dr. Nathan Unruh, certainly enjoyed your conversation here. Some good stuff, and especially, that whole idea of heart and, putting Jesus first and all of that. I think it says something about you and your character and why God has used you in so many areas of your life. So thanks again for taking the time and talking with us today.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Our culture is confused, and that confusion is spilling over into everything today. God is never confused, and those who know Him and obey Him are never confused. Confusion is the absence of truth. But here on this program, we untangle our culture's confusion with the truth. Thanks for listening. Thank you for joining us today. Every Friday, we bring you this podcast with interviews with people who are challenging the status quo of Christianity and challenging the cultural norms of our day. Please help us get the word out by sharing the link to this podcast with your online friends and family. Our website also contains other podcasters who are part of the City Sites network of communicators, all sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. Our website is citysitesurbanmedia.com.